With about 6,000 students on Western Illinois University's campus, 32% are minority students. That percentage has grown over the past 20 years and includes an international student population that has grown from 299 in 2019 to 816 in 2023.
With that, challenges can start to arise on campus and around the Macomb community. Students and faculty of the university must sit down together to find solutions that benefit every student.
Challenges that arise because of a diverse community is not only a race issue, it also includes gender identity, religious affiliation, social position, ethnicity, and education. All are issues that must be considered.
According to the National Center for Education Statistics, over 30% of the students in the United States are classified as first-generation college students, and at WIU, over 34% of the student body are classified as first-gen. Traditionally, first-generation college students tend to come from the diverse communities we previously mentioned. Most often, they are from backgrounds that are racially or ethnically minoritized, lower income, and have less access to supportive education programs.
While WIU has a growing community of students from minoritized backgrounds, they are working towards finding ways to support this population. For instance, according to the 2023 Social Mobility Index, WIU ranked first among universities in Illinois for supporting upward mobility. In other words, they are the best at enrolling and graduating large numbers of students who receive Pell Grants and other governmental financial support. Because of the changes in campus demographics causing WIU to be a more diverse campus than it was 20 years ago. This can be a challenge for Western Illinois University and the Macomb community.
It also offers unique opportunities for bridging gaps and unifying communities. A commitment to cultural competence and cultural humility means moving beyond simply being aware of or sensitive to people's cultural differences, but learning from and respecting those from other communities or backgrounds as well. We hope to explore the importance of understanding and respecting different backgrounds today.
And with this discussion, we hope the ideas shared today will be brought to life around campus and the Macomb community.
Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Levi Meyerhofer.
And I'm Jordan Sims. Our topic today is cultural competency.
Georgetown University defines cultural competency as the ability of an individual to understand and respect values, attitudes, and beliefs across cultures. Also to consider and respond appropriately to these differences in planning, implementing, and evaluating programs.
Today we have a few faculty joining us and a live audience in our studio. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us about what you do on campus?
Hi, I'm Carl Irvin. I'm the Director of the Office of Justice, Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity, and I work with improving our sense of belonging on campus for all types of groups.
My name is Curtis Pointer. I am an Assistant Complex Director here on WIU's campus. So I work in housing, working with our residence halls, and my role on campus is just make sure that I am a resource for our students, making sure that I also help create that sense of belonging, sense of community within the residence halls on campus.
And I am LaRon Williams, the Associate Director of the Multicultural Center, and I am responsible for programming for our minority-based students on campus, and yeah.
Well, I want to thank you all for joining us for this important discussion. We have a few questions that we would like to ask you all, and Levi, would you like to start us?
Once again, thank you for being here. So can you share, each of you, your personal understanding or definition of cultural competency? We'll start over here today, this time.
So for me, cultural competency is just an understanding of different cultures and what they mean to the groups that they serve. So just being able to understand the importance of certain events or certain holidays and being able to relate to them and find significance in it. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
When I think of cultural competency, I think of just understanding yourself first, understanding your own culture, your own background, your own history, facts, opinions, and anything like that. And then once you understand yourself, then you work to understand the people around you. So I think that's my own personal definition of just cultural competency.
Yeah.
For me, cultural competency is about understanding that it's important to have respect for difference. And this comes through understanding the complex differences of culture. And it's also about understanding interpersonally what is it about you and your ability to relate and work with other people without being afraid? And it's also interpersonally in the sense that it's looking at how you work with other groups and other people. So there's three-part things that you need to do to be, in my opinion, culturally competent.
Yeah. The biggest thing you said was you. It starts
Yes.
with you. And I think
It
that's
does.
important for everybody to understand. Cultural
Yes.
competency starts with you. You have to have that self-initiative to take that first step to understand what it means.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
So,
Yep.
our next question would be, could you share your background in working with students from diverse backgrounds or your experience collaborating with individuals from underrepresented communities?
Okay. Well, I've worked in my career at several different institutions. I've worked at a small school in Indiana, eastern Indiana, not too far from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Town of 2,000 people and 1,000 people at the university. And it was a Anabaptist institution. So that was the religion, and around us were a lot of people who were Anabaptists, which is a variation of the Mormons. And so working with those folks, then I've worked in St. Louis, where there's a lot more diversity, African American and Latinx, and now I work here. So I've experienced a lot of diversity in working with people and their needs, and one of the things I always understand is avoid making assumptions, listen to what the person has to say, and approach each encounter as an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to help the person be themselves. That I find is critical if we're going to succeed.
I would say just some of the work that I've done, just kind of growing up, mostly around in African American communities, and just growing up a certain type of lifestyle. Once I came to Macomb, Illinois, it was a culture shock for me. I wasn't around the typical communities that I used to grow up in, so I proceeded to just kind of work in various areas around campus, whether I used to work in admissions, I used to do work for the MCC, in housing, wherever I used to go. I used to just try to bring everybody together. And then now currently, even though I still work in housing, I'm also the advisor for NAACP. I'm the advisor for another Black male mentorship sort of organization that we have on campus. And then just overall just preaching the message that we all have to accept one another regardless of differences. So I think that's just some of the biggest work that I've done on campus and will continue to do so.
So my experience is just like Curtis's experience, where I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and being in the middle of the country, you're kind of the melting pot for a lot of cultural identities, and so you go to celebrate, Cinco de Mayo in certain parts of the city because that's where it's located and that's where it's celebrated the best. You go celebrate Juneteenth in this part of the city because that's where it's celebrated and that's where it's celebrated the best. So growing up, I had those experiences. I had multiple friends that were a part of many cultural identities. And so as I grew and started working in college, higher education, it was almost kind of like, why don't these schools do these things? And so as I, on my 12-year career, as I started to understand or experience different, have different experiences, I should say, it all culminated to me getting here to Western Illinois and saying, hey, this is what I experienced at this university. We should do that here. So a lot of the activities that I've done for like our homecoming or our Black History Month or our other identity months that we celebrate, I've very much so kind of tapped into the experiences that I've had and the great experiences, or this is what I could do better experience. And so yes, it's a lot sometimes, but it's worth it.
Yeah. I like the way you all touched on using your past experiences to build that cultural competency within yourself, and then hopefully working to spread it throughout where you're going. So thank you for sharing that. What are some ways to create, I know you touched on it a little bit, to create a more inclusive and supportive environment?
I think Carl touched on it a lot. You have to listen, but I think, a place that like Western Illinois, I don't know, I could be jumping ahead here, but a place like Western Illinois, I think a lot of the students are tired of talking and answering questions. So instead of listening, it has to be action. You have to think about, tell me one thing I can do right now to make you feel welcome. And that's what I've been experiencing in my role, is what program could I do to make you feel welcome right now? And so there are a lot of things that are different. There are a lot of things that kind of seem out of order or seem like, whoa, this is the first time I've seen this. But if it's not different, it doesn't feel like we're trying.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I've been kind of trying to lean over and talk to students. Sometimes you'll come into the Multicultural Center and you'll see tons of students in my office, but it's because I want to hear what they want. So I leave my door open just to say, hey, what do y'all want? So, yeah.
Kind of thinking back just on all of my experiences, even just, being in my current role now, I think one of the ways that I try to create that sense of belonging is I do something is what I call getting in the field, which is just, like LaRon just said, no more conversations, no more asking, no more, trying to find out what people want. It's just more so about taking action and getting in the field to bring that effort, I should say. In so many words, because when students see the work being put in, their reactions are totally different from just constantly asking students, what do you want, what do you want, what do you want, and then nothing is being done about it. So one of the things that I try to do in the residence halls is I just take the time to just go around talking to students. I invite students to play pool on the second floor, tell people about events going on campus, offer to walk students to different meetings or send them a personalized email to job applications and scholarship applications, letting them know that somebody cares about you. And it's funny that you asked this question because I was just doing some research on higher education, I want to say a couple weeks ago, and one of the main reasons students tend to drop out, especially from underrepresented communities, is because they don't have that sense of belonging. So, I mean, there are a bunch of other reasons like, financial aid and different things like that, but the number one reason is always because they don't feel connected to whatever institution they may be a part of. So if you can create that sense of connection, then all of a sudden students are becoming leaders and going out into the world and knowing that people care about them. So start small, but then it has a big snowball effect.
And as a similar vein as to what's mentioned, it's about building those relationships and building those relationships starting with myself. Model the behavior I'm expecting for students. If I'm telling students to get involved and get engaged with different groups, then I need to attend different events, different venues, just to see that I'm there. I'm not isolating myself to this group or that group, but I say I represent everyone, then I'm going to be involved with everyone. It's also about following up. If I say I'm going to do something, then I need to do it. Students have to have that relationship, and that relationship is built on trust. You let someone down once, twice, 3 times, and then you say, but believe me, they're not going to believe you. You have to show that you care about them. And you have to give them the best service, that's why it's back on yourself, the best service possible so that their needs are met. And that starts with me saying, hello, how you doing? Do you know how important it is for a person just to have someone say hello to them that day? And it's being aware that I'm saying hello to everyone, not just this particular person that I already know. You can make their day, and all of a sudden, as opposed to this being a place where people don't want to belong, they feel more welcome. In fact, I remember, and it's stuck out in my mind still, when I was at Purdue, I remember someone wrote a letter into the campus newspapers. See, that's a long time ago, they had newspapers then. And the person said, I became a Purdue student today. I didn't say hi to anyone. And it stuck in my mind to this day that it's important to acknowledge people. And so, again, starting with self.
You all talk about like listening and learning. That's like the fundamental, like that's what you learn in communication class. Like you have to listen first. Like that's the first thing you have to do. And listening to students is important as faculty members because like you don't know what's going on in your community. The Macomb students that live here on campus, you don't know unless you listen to them, listen to their needs, and make sure you're trying to get their needs met. So that leads into our next question. It says, how has listening and learning from others based on their backgrounds and cultures played a role in your life both personally and professionally. But I want to touch on how it played a role in your professional life and then personal life.
Or you want me to-
Anybody?
All right. So ask the question again.
Okay. How has listening and learning from others based on their backgrounds and cultures played a role in your life, both personally and professionally?
So when I was growing up, I grew up in a predominantly African American neighborhood, and I don't want to say it like this, but it wasn't diverse at all. As I began to go to junior high, I had more diverse friends, and then high school was like bang, like it was just this melting pot. I went to Central High School, whoop, whoop. 20-year anniversary coming up here soon. Don't judge me. And I went to school with some of the scariest people, but I also went to school with Warren Buffett's granddaughter. So, and I graduated with her.
Yeah.
So, like, there's such a huge, diverse population of people in that school, and you couldn't help but to be exposed to different cultures all the time. The school that I was at was located in between 3 different communities, and it was a straight shot to a more well-off or more affluent community. So that community could come to that school straight off the highway and drop their son or daughter off, and i.e. Warren Buffett's granddaughter. So then you had the Latinx community here, and you had the African American community right there. So that kind of forged who I was, because my friends taught me a lot. I didn't know when I was growing up, I didn't know the difference between Taco Bell and actual authentic food. Like it kept me, so when I actually experienced actual authentic tacos, it's like, whoa, I've never had this before. I thought it all tasted like Taco Bell at one point in time. But then I was exposed to that, and it taught me like, okay, well, I need to meet more authentic, like people from these places and see, like, because this was good. Like, what haven't I had yet? Yeah. And so that led me to kind of who I am today, where I love those experiences. I love, trying out different restaurants. Los Churros is our favorite Tuesday. So like we thrive by experiencing things.
I think you all have all shared your personal and professional experiences with us today, so we get to know a little bit more about you, but also how that relates to like the culture on campus and creating a better community on campus. Next up, we will have student leaders joining the discussion. Stay with us.
Rooted in teaching tradition, the desire to impact lives through education formed our Leatherneck way of life.
Here, a Leatherneck doesn't salute to how things have always been, but instead envisions a world that is full of possibility. At Western, a Leatherneck is courageous. A Leatherneck is a creative, outside-the-box thinker, bold and big-hearted. A Leatherneck is someone who trailblazes ahead into the unknown.
From around the world to right here in Illinois, in every sex, shape, color, or creed, we stand together as Leathernecks, fearless and loyal.
At Western, we believe every student with the hope to succeed deserves to thrive at our institution. We're invested in honing each student's individual strengths to turn that hope into promise. Our commitment shows in everything that we do.
In Macomb and the Quad Cities, all walks of life meet to share cultures, ideas, and aspirations. Our students bring a new perspective and a forward-thinking mindset that will help them wherever they go next.
Whatever the next challenge we face, we strengthen and evolve. With fortitude, we remain devoted to our Leatherneck fighting spirit.
When we stand together, we stand up for what matters, going forth as one. And that unity takes us far beyond what we ever imagined.
The world needs leathernecks like you.
Most of the military folks I know, I think we've all lost fellow service members to suicide, and female veterans die by suicide more often than female non-veterans. Store your guns securely. Help stop suicide. Service never stops.
Here today we have a few student leaders on campus to join the discussion. Can you please introduce yourselves and what you are involved with here on campus? We'll start over.
All right, my name is McNeil. I am the student president for NABA, which is the National Association of Black Accountants here in WIU.
My name is Theodore Banya, and I am the president of Amplify, a organization in the MCC, as well as a brother of Alpha Psi Lambda.
Hi, I am Samaya Austin. I am the membership chair of the Black Student Association. I am the membership chair of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and I am the vice president of Recognition and Values for National Residence Hall Honorary.
Well, I want to thank you all for joining us. As student leaders, you know, you are the focal point. You are the voice for some students that may not feel like they have a voice. So, our first question today is, can you share your personal understanding or definition of cultural competency?
When I think about cultural competency, I think of it as the understanding of one's ability to not only understand their own culture, but to understand the beliefs and the values that other cultures uphold as well. You have to have the ability to not only be able to understand it, but understand the reasons for why they have certain traditions, holidays, traditional clothing, etc.
I would completely agree with that. I also think that an important thing to consider is just that nobody's going to be an expert in every single culture. So I think just keeping a very open mind and being willing to have those conversations and, you know, kind of engage with other cultures.
Yeah.
And to piggyback on what they both said, I think also trying to experience other cultures is also part of learning, you know, cultural competency, because it should not just be about learning or reading or asking questions, but putting yourself in their own shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Thank you all for sharing. So, how is, and any of you can answer, how has listening and learning from others based on their background and cultures played a role in your life, both personally and then professionally, as you've gone through college?
All right, so
anybody.
All right, so I'll start. Originally, I came from Africa, Nigeria to be precise. Our culture there is different, and we are an African country that has different tribes, so we have different cultures. I started my cultural journey from there, you know, to try to understand what makes us different, and at the same time, what makes us together or what makes us the same. Coming over to the United States to school, it broadened the scope of different cultures, because I now knew that, oh, there are Latinx people, there are Indians here in school, there are also Caucasians, and everybody has different cultures. So it was not just about, asking them questions, but then attending their festivals, things like Diwali, to really understand how the Indians celebrate their cultures or their festivals. And then the Chinese New Year, finding out what that is all about also. So for me, I think cultural competency, I approach it from a place of experience and not just conversations, because experiencing it makes you, or brings a sense of humility to really understand that it's not just about you, but humanity in general.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. In my own experience, I would say I grew up in Chicago, and I feel like I was very lucky to be in a city that really does encompass that melting pot. I feel like I was exposed to a lot of different Asian communities, as well as the Latino community, the African American community, just because that's everyone was around, you know. So I think that definitely influenced me in wanting to kind of go out and experience more and be involved. And so coming to Western Illinois, I feel like it was a little bit of a culture shock just because it's a lot smaller. But I think it still just really pushed me to get out there and get involved, and to be involved in the organizations I am involved with now, which are really geared towards developing that multicultural community that we have here on campus.
Yeah.
For me, I kind of want to piggyback off of what Theo said. I'm also from Chicago, so like I have been all over Chicago, and I went to school downtown where there were a lot of different races and ethnicities. And I guess for me, one thing that I really tried to do was embrace and respect other people's culture, and that's where like the whole cultural appropriation, cultural appreciation comes in. I've tried to understand the history of people's, of other ethnicities and races, like cultural dishes and why they make them. Not only just eat it to eat, but to also eat it to understand and to learn like why it's important.
Well, yeah, you already talked about like experiencing those different cultures, like taking that step to like go out and like experience that for yourself. So what are some challenges you may foresee, and how can these challenges be addressed when, you know, trying to go experience those different cultures? Anybody?
Knowing right from wrong, I want to say. I think something that a lot of people are afraid of is that when you want to explore a culture that isn't yours, it's also just like, how do I approach it in a way that's respectful? How do I approach it where I'm not offending anybody, where I'm not hurting myself? And one thing that I do is I just say go for it. Like obviously, if you want to learn about somebody else's culture, you have to go ask them about it. Don't just read up on it online. Get it straight from like the horse's mouth per se.
Yeah.
So like if I wanted to know anything about Nigeria or his culture, I would go directly ask him. I wouldn't just like try to read it online and then be like, oh, I know all about this. Like I'm an expert at this now. This is my culture. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
I would say definitely. I think one of the biggest issues that might come up when trying to experience a different culture would be just feeling like nervous that, I don't know, you'll get called out, that you'll be canceled or something like that. I think my answer to that would just be respectful, but keep an open mind. Don't be afraid to mess up a little or, you know, pronounce things wrong, you know, say things the wrong way, but just make sure that if you do, you apologize, you're respectful about it, and you just keep going forward with good intentions.
Yeah, and just to speak about what Theo said, open-mindedness is key because if you approach a culture from your own perspective, you would not get the best out of it because we as human beings already have our biases, right, that are ingrained in us. So you have to open up your mind to know that this is a different culture, this is a different person, and then try to experience it as much as they would want you to experience, because the culture is not yours, right? It's another person's culture. So you have to be respectful enough to know that this is their culture and this is how they want me to experience it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing those. So within each of your respective organizations on campus, how, as leaders, what efforts are you taking and have you made to foster multicultural understanding here at Western Illinois?
I can go. So I would say first and foremost with the organization Amplify out of the MCC, our main goal really is to just help facilitate conversations between different groups of people and people from different backgrounds. So we do try to get just a really diverse group of students together for all of our GA meetings or general assemblies. And we have conversations on a wide variety of subjects, anything between the situation going on right now between Israel and Palestine to local issues here in Macomb. So really just anything, but making sure that everyone from no matter their background has a place where they can come and talk.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, so for me, with the National Association for Black Accountants, we try to coach business leaders and people in the line of finance and accounting. So we go to companies, we talk to them, and we don't just bring it for African American people. Yes, there is Black accountants in our name, but then we open it up to everybody, right? To make sure that it's as inclusive as possible. So to the whole school, the whole faculty of accounting, come, learn, and then, you know, get opportunities. So, yeah.
I am in quite a few orgs, but to kind of piggyback off of what he said, I feel like that's kind of our main goal as well. Like obviously when you hear the name BSA, you think of Black students only, and while it is a comfortable space for Black students, it's also open for any and everybody. We have people of all kinds of races coming there. One of our biggest events that kind of like showcases that is when we talk about Thanksgiving, because you know, people love to eat. So, you know, hearing other cultural dishes that other people have and hearing what's important to them is very interesting because it opens up a conversation on how like one dish can be made multiple different ways, but how it's still important for everybody else.
Yeah.
And when it comes to NAACP, everybody knows the history of it. It wasn't just black people, it wasn't just white people. There were Asians, Indians, indigenous people. Everybody was in the NAACP. And so one of the goals that we're really trying to focus on this year, and hopefully for the future, is trying to connect with those orgs that we don't necessarily hear from a lot.
I think that is really important. You already touched on like what are you doing for your students, but how can students and faculty actively incorporate what we are discussing into their daily interactions and activities on campus? So like how can you and the faculty get together and like foster this idea that you all are creating? Anybody? You can be candid.
I would say, I think first and foremost, just really participating and engaging. I think there's a lot of great events that go on, either that are put on from the like student organizations or from the MCC themselves. And I think just having that support at those events and getting people to really engage in those conversations or those celebrations, whatever they are, really helps give people a chance to explore those other cultures and engage.
I say step out of comfort zones. I know like certain orgs are under certain names for specific reasons, so that group of people gravitate toward that org. Something that I'm also working on is trying to stay out of just black-centered orgs. Like I do want to go to orgs on campus that I don't normally go to, like Amplify and like Unity and stuff like that. And it's really hard, mostly because I kind of feel in a way that I don't belong, even when they say like, oh, the doors are open for everybody. So it's kind of just like taking that first step forward. A lot of people don't take the first step, but when you take the first step, then the ball just keeps rolling.
And so for me, I think one additional thing that I've been doing is talking to our faculty advisor, you know, to say that we need to be as inclusive as possible. Yes, the name has, you know, black accountants, but then we have to open it. And having that conversation with my faculty advisor was what led to us opening up the group for every other person. So I think these conversations need to be had and then follow through with action.
Well, do you feel like, are you supported by these the faculty around campus?
Yes.
Okay,
very
that's
much
good.
so.
Do you feel like you're supported?
It depends on where and who you ask.
Okay.
For me personally, I feel as if, in a general sense, yes. On paper, yes. But when it comes to that physical interaction, when it comes to that I need help on the spot, that doesn't happen like that. And I would hate to sit up here and be a liar and say that I do feel supported when there are several instances, even just as of recently, where I have not felt supported by faculty and staff.
And it's important for you to use your voice to say that so that they can, you know, try to change things. That's what we're here today to do.
Right.
So going forward and, you know, looking back on yourselves, how have you personally, what are steps that you've taken here on campus? You talked about going to see other organizations. What are some other steps that you've personally taken that you've seen success in yourself and in others in understanding cultural competency?
Okay, so I'll go. For me, one thing that we've done is to start volunteering. So not just for our own events, but then we volunteer for other events and also outside campus as well. It helps us to, you know, meet people of different cultures. So for example, I know we worked with the Macomb Council to fix up the city center, and that was actually a very good opportunity to learn about Macomb's history, to learn about the people that lead Macomb. It was not just with students alone, but so I think stepping out of just your organization and volunteering, not just expecting anything in return, but wanting to help people genuinely would give you the opportunity to learn more about them.
Thank you. Yeah, going out and going in the community and finding out as much as you can for yourself. Thank you for sharing that. Next up, we're going to have both groups sit down and answer some questions from our audience. Stay with us.
my sweet home. Wherever I may roam, you will take me home. Days passing by and I seem to get it right with you by my side. You're my special place. You're where I feel safe. You and nothing else.
Welcome back. As we stated earlier, we have a live audience in the studio this evening who we want to allow to ask questions. For our first question, it is...
Yeah, so our first question from the audience. In your opinion, what does the WIU campus look like when it has achieved creating and supporting a diverse environment? So what will it look like at that time?
You can go with anybody.
I can start off with that one. Well, one, I don't think we have achieved that just yet. So I've been on this campus about 6 years. I have seen a lot of progress to get made, but every once in a while it'll be something that set us back. But what I have seen from the effort is resiliency, being able to not only try to bounce back, but try to make the next steps forward. But I think that really looks like just effort, just putting in the work, doing things like this, letting it be known, the experiences of students, the experiences of black students potentially, and just black and brown students, letting it be known and wanting people to do something about it. I think as long as there's effort, I think we're on the right path to creating that type of sense of belonging, type of community that we're looking for. So.
I'll chime in too. Sorry. I think because Western Illinois is in such a unique situation, the school is the community. So when you talk about what efforts look like, you literally have to include the community in that. So what it looks like to me is like a collaboration between the community and the school. There's so much diversity in the school, but you don't see that same diversity in the community. Mm-hmm. So we share a lot of things, but there's not a lot of what do we call it? Cooperation. Not cooperation, but it's not a lot of inclusion on outside of the campus. We have to be so inclusive on campus, but outside the campus, it's like, where are we at? So
yeah. Anybody else?
I think we can see it when we have this culture of respect, in the sense that it used to be people would smoke. And now if someone smokes, people look at them like, where are you coming from? We don't do that. Mm-hmm. And so when someone says something negative and there's harassment, there's anything like that, people will look at them like, that's unacceptable. So for me, we achieve that when we have this culture. Everyone feels welcome. You go to any place you want and you don't have to say, will I feel welcome there in the restaurants? Will I feel welcome there in this club on campus because of the name of their identity group? When we reach that point, I think we're there. But it's going to continue on and on because we're human beings.
Yeah. Lauren, you touched on about like the inclusiveness of the community and trying to get them involved and trying to like better like the Macomb as in general. I know with the protests that happened just last semester and the reason behind why the protests happened. Do you feel that that was a step back, or did we learn from the mistakes in the past and move forward? I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
No, it's a good question, but a lot of these questions I've already thought about.
Yeah.
And I have conversations with people outside the campus too, because I have to understand how I'm going to approach the situation. Mm-hmm. I think it was good on both sides. I think it showed the protest showed the students that the community was ready to respond with the students.
Yeah.
But it also taught the students something also, that they have to be on their P's and Q's, and it showed them how to organize. It showed them how to do stuff the right way. It showed them how to be one band, one sound, as they say. And that's how powerful they were. Yeah. There were so many things that happened post that protest because it was so many people that came together to say, like, we just don't want to see that here. That's too close to campus. Like, no, that's not gonna happen. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was twofold. I thought it was really good for the campus and the community. And like Carl said, like, this is how you show, like, we're trying to move forward. This is what we want our city to be. So.
Yeah.
She organized it.
Yeah. You weren't organizing, but.
Yeah,
but you can
I
say,
spoke
you can
to you.
speak to it.
I
Yeah.
spoke to you about the protest. I also spoke to Jeremy, your president. So can you explain a little bit more about that process of, that protest and organizing?
Well, when it came to like the protest, how it started, that was a NAACP thing. We sat in a meeting, and they said we had to act, and they said we had to act fast. And so we did a lot of brainstorming. We had to contact as many people as possible. But from a learning perspective, I think it showed us that we have the strength in numbers. We just don't understand how much power we actually have. Yeah. Because when we did the protest, when we were walking towards Spirit in the Sky, when we came together that day, there were so many different races, ethnicities, all kinds of culture in that crowd. And as somebody who was looking at everybody else, it was amazing to see how collective we can be as a unit. And I feel like it showed Western that we can do it together. We just have to learn how to do it in a way that helps out every party. Kind of like what LaRon said. It's like you help me, I help you kind of thing.
You talk about change, and that leads us to our next question. And in your organization, you probably work with students who feel more comfortable discussing their experiences. What are some things students are saying they want to change? Like, what are you hearing from students of, like, this needs to change, and if the next few years I might not be here, but like, what is changing that needs to be changed?
Well, one of the things I see is something like Amplify did the other day. They did a program about what does it mean defining an American. Mm-hmm. So people feel accepted. They believe that they're part of the country, part of the culture and society, and that's what we can do here at the societal level, but also on an individual level here at WIU. It's what you guys do.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would say, just speaking on that, I think a lot of students, and who I talk to at least, feel like while there is a much more inclusive attitude towards the student body in general, a lot of students are still very separated. There's a lot of, people stick with their own groups more than anything. And I think trying to have events, and I appreciate that, the shout out for Define American, but events like that really do try to show the campus and the community that we're all connected, we're all one community, and we really do rely on each other. I think that's something huge that would improve the campus.
Yeah. You talk about being more connected. That's basically what you all want to be, more connected throughout every organization, so that you all can like lend a listening ear, help out when you need to help out.
Yeah. I don't know that there's necessarily any one event that students say would, that, or at least, talk about bringing them together or what they want to see more. What I from a programming coordinator perspective, finding generalized programs like general events that people want to come to that will bring the masses out is kind of something that students want to see. So more college pageantry is kind of what they want to be a part of. But again, WIU is unique in that. Like, our freshman class was the minority was the majority for the first time in a long time. So like, how do you make it, how you have college pageantry for that group of students at a PWI? So so like, it's one of those things where it's a unique situation, because you have to get those students to you have to make them feel included, but what their idea of inclusion is something that we haven't offered in a offered in a long time. So.
Thank you all for sharing on that front. Some great answers.
Yeah.
Jordan, some great questions there from our audience as well. In the context of campus life, how can students leverage their unique cultural backgrounds to foster a more inclusive and dynamic learning environment?
I think in the aspect of campus life, the one thing I always try to tell students is that we need more representation. The only way to get more representation is by putting them in a position of where they become a student leader. That's the difference between, your average student that just goes to class, goes back to their room, to their apartment, to their dorm room, to the dining hall, the usual traditional routine. But the person that takes that first step to be presidents of different organizations, to be a mentor to other students, those are the people that create that campus life change that we want to see in the rest of the student body. If you get a collective amount of student leaders on campus to spark that new change of campus life and what we want to see, you'll start to see the rest of the students want to be that type of person, want to be that type of student, and then they go on to be that type of professional in the real world. And just reflecting back on my freshman year, this was the first time when I came to WIU that I was seeing black men that looked like me, my age, in suits, just because. They wasn't no special occasion, they wasn't winning no award, but just because they wanted to look good. And that was the first time that I seen it, and I was like, man, I want to be like that. I want to be able to dress like that just because I have the ability to, just because I have the confidence to. And based on that, that was one of the main reasons those group of guys kept me in school. And now I can pay that forward to the younger generation now. And I think that's what we have here just on this panel. A bunch of student leaders, not necessarily student leaders, but just a bunch of leaders that's doing the work and trying to incite that new campus culture that you were referring to.
I think it's also important to recognize when people do good work. Preeminent Gentlemen Society is the group, the organization where the young men dress up in suits. And sometimes for people to make change, it has to be acknowledged. If someone does something and no one ever acknowledges, why try? Recognize that they're doing something, I think it's gonna help us to move forward. And something that I think is really important, like Curtis mentioned, is you have to be the change, like Mahatma Gandhi said, you have to be the change that you wanna see. And that means making up and protesting, means talking to professors, say we want that representation, not just behind the podium in the lectern, but in the material that we're receiving here. You're learning about these different things, but are we learning about the contributions of the LGBTQ members of the community? Are we learning about what the African Americans, the Asians? Let's change our text that we're learning from so that we have this expanded view of what it's all about. I talk too much.
No,
I do the same thing.
That's good. Thank you.
No, I'm good. I said I do the same thing.
And we have one more question from the audience. For students who are aspiring to take on leadership roles, what advice would you give them to promote a more supportive and inclusive culture?
Dive in head first. No. I think so. I've seen it firsthand. Work your way up. So, I've been reading. I read a lot of leadership books. I went to, I got my master's in education and leadership development. So, when it comes to leaders are great followers first. So, if you don't know how to follow, then you don't know how to lead, essentially. So, when you are trying to be a good leader, it's always good to just get involved in a small way. Because once you become that leader, if the people that are following you see you picking up tables and picking up chairs, then you model the behavior, like Carl said, you model the behavior that you want. So yes, if you feel like you're stuck in doing the scrappy stuff, cleaning up the kitchen after an event, it's not always the most popular thing, but you learn the organization from the ground level, and then you grow up within the organization, and maybe you are the treasurer one year, and then you become the VP the next year, and then next year you become the president. but you know all the levels of that organization so well that you can run it by yourself. And you are teaching your e-board, this is what I need you to do. And it runs so smoothly that way. So I may have taken it, from, you, Curtis, I apologize, but that's essentially what I would do. I would start from the ground level and just get involved, find what you're passionate about, and then go.
I think that is great advice, and for any student out there listening, that you should take that advice. Stay with us after the break. Oh, not. Okay. Anybody else want to answer?
So just piggybacking what Laron said, the little things count. It must not be a big protest. It must not be something really massive. But the small things you do to contribute to moving the needle actually count in the long run. And for cultural competency, it's not instant, right? It's a long-term game. In fact, it might take lifetimes, but the goal is to have it become the cultural norm everywhere. So, yeah.
And I think it's also important that there's always this self-evaluation, this self-critique, because we don't know how to improve if we don't know where we are. Like the National Association of Black Accountants, you mentioned, you're evaluating yourself to see if a name change is going to make a difference. And that's so important. You're successful, but it's how can we do better? And that's got to be complimented.
I guess for me, when it comes to leadership, I want to say it's something that everybody hears, but be unapologetically you. Like, always be you, like, no matter what. As a person who can be very, very passionate about stuff, and I know sometimes, like, I constantly hit the nail on the head, or, like, I'm constantly trying to, like, fight against what I want. If you're not passionate about it, no one's going to take you seriously. I feel like you have to show up, ask the hard questions, do all the hard work behind the scenes, and that's how you essentially, like, create a place for yourself and create a place for other people to kind of relate to or kind of want to follow in. Speaking just a little bit on, like, my major, when it comes to modeling, like, good behavior, as it was said before, the more and more you model a good behavior, the more people are going to follow that good behavior, and they're going to want to do good things as well. And it can be as small as even going to, like, somebody's org, but it can also be as big as, like, getting straight on e-board. You might not know nothing about e-board. It's okay to not know anything about e-board, but as long as you take the time to learn the fundamentals, learn the ins and outs, get to know your members, and not even just getting to know your members, getting to know the general members, because that retention is very, very important when it comes to trying to build a community for student leaders. If we don't have a conversation right here, right now, and I don't know these people, I'm never going to come back again because I don't know them. But if I take the time to understand, like, what they do, and I don't even have to talk to them one-on-one, but just take the time to read about who they are, it works that way. It works that way, you know?
I kind of wanted to echo something that LaRon said, which is a very powerful message about kind of just starting. And it's kind of the difference between day one or one day. You can always be a dreamer. You can always dream about big things, but you have to start small. And I can reflect on this experience. Just earlier this week, I was helping a student make a resume that didn't have one, that wanted that, the next student leadership type of position that she wanted, but she needed help creating a resume. And she was like, well, I just worked at White Castle, McDonald's. And I'm like, so what? That's a job, right? Just because you think it's not important, you still were servicing people, you were managing, you were supervising. That is a heavy job for a freshman coming in with years of experience. So I'm like, you never discount what you do growing up. Just because you don't think it's popular, you are helping somebody. You are doing the job. You are doing the right thing. You're on the right path. And then I told her about, I used to be a janitor for 3 years. It doesn't matter where you start, it's where you end up. It's the path that you're trying to take to get to that next step. So it's always the difference between one day and day one. The ones that say day one are usually the student leaders. Those are the people that go out and change the world. So if you want to change the world, you got to start at day one.
I'm still in that. Day one and one day. That's good.
Stay with us after the break.
At Western Illinois University, Leathernecks don't just blend in. Our purple stands out. Our students are innovative, creative, and resilient. At WIU, there is limitless potential. with campuses in Macomb, the Quad Cities, and online. Visit wiu.edu/potential to become a Leatherneck and get an education that stands out.
I'll be here to hear what's on your mind. Take this time to talk and get it right. You know I'll be there all your life. When you need me, I'll be by your side.
Little everyday conversations about the dangers of underage drinking can make a big difference in a child's life. Talk, they hear you.
At Western Illinois University, you will explore your talents in a place where you belong. No matter where you come from, no matter what you want to do, we believe in where your potential will take you. Learn more at wiu.edu.
Attacks against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are on the rise.
My simple solution to the problem was remove people from the scene and help them feel safer. In terms of the hate crimes, I think there is so much more work to be done. We really need to come together and tackle this issue as a community.
This has been a very insightful discussion, and we are grateful to the panelists who joined us today to have a tough but much needed conversation.
We want to thank the audience as well for joining us. We hope that everyone watching can learn something from this discussion. Angela Davis said, "I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept." What can you do to enact change?